these indigenous women did not get as much justice as they should have got. So this is one of the narratives which is mentioned in postmodernism, Laili Otad, and I had searched in the web, and it was that they cannot speak it out. They cannot say why the land is sacred to us. Only the women have the secret with them. So that is that's one of the aspects of the scheduled tribe, whether in for the Native Americans or the Australian Aboriginals or our people over here. They are so associated with the land, and for the people who are like the mainstream people whose thought process go as per the colonial uh, thoughts, they are always tiptoeing the Westerners, like when it comes to climatology or land owning and etc. There is these people are going just unheard of. We are doing research on them, like a lot of people in our own ODI department or English department, they're working on them, but it stops there. It has to be go to a level of reaching out to them. They have their own activism is within their group, but mainstream also have to come out so that we can really retain what will otherwise be lost forever. Already most of it is lost. Most of it is lost. So whatever little is there, we have to try to retain it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Pati.
Gratitude, sir, for the illuminating session. Without further delay, let us commence our sixth lecture session. I kindly invite Professor Joyjit Ghosh, Professor and Head of the Department of English, Vidyasagar University, West Bengal, India. This session will also be chaired by Professor Madhushmita Pati.
Okay. I'll be in touch. Let me introduce Professor Joyjeet Ghosh, and again I have this privilege of introducing two stalwarts from Bengal in academia and who have their expertise in English literature. Dr. Joyjeet Ghosh is Professor English Vidyasagar University. He was the deputy coordinator of the UGC DRS SAP project on the translation, documentation, and digitization of Adivasi and folk literature and culture of West Bengal during 2015-20. He has a fair number of publications to his credit. He published works and include articles, book chapters on D.H. Lawrence, Rabindranath Tagore, and Mahasweta Devi, among other great minds. His book, Imagining D.H. Lawrence, His Mind and Art in Letters, has been widely acclaimed by Lawrence scholars. His research interests include Indian writing in English, Bangla Dalit literature, environmental studies, animal studies, diasporic literature, and translation studies. The Bleeding Border, Stories of Bengal Partition, which was published in 2022, co-edited with Mir Ahmad Ali, is one of his leading publications. Along with Professor Scott Solvik and Dr. Samit Kumar Maiti, he edited Eco-Disaster Imaginaries in India, Essays in Critical Perspectives. Recently, his article titled Can I Become a Tree? Plant Imagination in Contemporary Indian Poetry in English has been published with special issue on critical green theories and botanical imaginaries, exploring human and more than human world entanglements, of the journal Open Critical Studies, edited by Peggy Corcho and Nicoleta Jampaki. With this introduction, I would now um, uh, request Professor Ghosh to take over.
What's the time? Good morning or good afternoon, which is appropriate, I don't know. Thank you very much, the organizers of this conference at City College, Rajkumar, Urpita, Abhishek, among others, the authority of the college for this kind of invitation to share my humble understanding of certain issues which I believe are perfectly pertinent to the thrust area of the conference being held here. And of course, Professor Poti, who now is holding the chair, I feel privileged to give my presentation in front of her. And of course, their audience, which includes the scholars and students. Without much ado, I would like to give my presentation. As you can see, this is the title which I've chosen for the presentation, that is, You Munda, Why Use the Language of Diku? Locating Adivasi consciousness and cultural assertion of the Mundas in the songs of Karam. So I would particularly concentrate on the Karam festival songs of the Mundas. You all know that like Sarul and of course the Baha and other festivals, Karam is also a very major festival of the Adivasi communities. But what I am going to emphasize here is how one can just give a close attention on the songs of Karam festival, particularly practiced by the Munda people. I feel privileged to have two persons. One is my friend with whom I did my B.Ed course, that is Sri Ramjivan Singh, who is a teacher in Shanboli College, school, and another is a student of mine who did his PhD, Shundeep Chottoraj, along with, your ISR. I supervised the thesis of Shundeep Chottoraj, who is now Dr. Shundeep Chottoraj, because I'm hugely indebted to them, because they helped me directly in translating the original Mundari songs into Bengali, and then of course I could translate them into English. So this is, and who is Diku? What is the problem with the Diku? Okay, of course I would try to explore as I would go on. Okay, there is one song which I would like to share with you, and one dance, and only two relevant pictures. There are so many pictures shared with me by my friend, but I would be concentrating on only a few audio clip, and one video. Eta? What's another? Yeah. This is the beginning, the point of beginning. The Adivasis have a rich tradition of folk songs, folklore, legends, etc., rituals, songs of worship. And why they are important to us? Because they give us rare insights into their culture, their own indigenous worldview, their way of life, and often they speak about the hardship in the day-to-day life. And obviously, as already I have indicated, I'd be zooming on the Karam songs. Okay, and obviously, who are the communities, the Adivasi communities who practice this Karam festival? I've specified that is Santal, Munda, Lodha Shabar, Khediya Shabur, Bhumij, Oraon, among others, and who particularly populate the states like Jharkhand, West Bengal, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Assam, Odisha, and I would be concentrating on their religious and cultural practices in order to suit the theoretical framework which I would like to bring home in the course of my presentation. I believe it doesn't change, so you just change, okay? Now, it doesn't change? You can make it full screen and change automatically. Yeah. So these are, a couple of, yeah, it was all right. Yeah. Well, there are a couple of pictures, and they are taken, in the village of my friend, Sri Ramjivan Singh. This is the Karam festival. I would like to draw your attention particularly to the white cock there. Why it is important to us? I would soon be clarifying. The white cock. Okay, next. Yeah. And these are dance, so you can play on if you like. Parve, it just need to take a minute only. The original, the tribal dance. Okay, then you have the song. Okay, so the song now. Minimize the song. This song. This is important. Are we playing an iconic song of the Karam festival? And yeah. Chalo bhai.
পইল ভাদর মাসে আইনিব ঘুরায় কাল যে রে করম রাজা ঘরে দুয়ারে আয় জরে করম রাজা শাঁক নদীর ধারে যা যারে করম রাজা এও 6 মাস পইল ভাদর মাসে আইনিব ঘুরায় কাল যে রে করম রাজা ঘরে দুয়ারে আতরে করম রাজা শাঁক নদীর ধারে
Thank you. I asked Srihori Munda, who is still alive, living in Jhargram, that what does it mean, Shank Nodi? Where is the real river Shank Nodi? He couldn't clarify because it's a part of a folk tradition. So Shank or Shat, in Bengali speak of 7 rivers, Shashumutar Nodir Par. So what does it mean? Even they haven't been able to locate, but this is the original song. Okay, next please. Yeah. Now, yeah. This is a tale. This is a tale of karma and dharma, which is central to the Karam festival, and they sing, they give this narrative through the song. Okay. I'm not going to just, you can read it on the screen, but what is important to you or to me, that is, this is part of the allegorical imagination, karma and dharma. And karma was, work alcoholic, so he of course found his fortune, but when he came back home, he wanted a kind of respect from his brother Dharma. Dharma, of course, is poor, and he is a true devotee of the culture, of the Mundari culture. And Karma became very angry when, of course, he didn't receive the appropriate, quote unquote, appropriate respect from his brother or the brother's wife. He uprooted the trees, the Karam tree in particular, and Karam god became very angry and cursed him. So his wealth, his prosperity started dwindling away. Okay, you have read in Macbeth, dwindle, peak and pine. So that was the fate. And finally, of course, when he was just bankrupt, then Karam god, out of compassion, told him that it is high time for you to plant a Karam tree and, of course, offer the festival and, of course, worship to Karam god. Then again he brought back his wealth, his fortune. So this is the story. Then, bye. Yeah. So this is, thereafter prosperity and wealth came to him. From that day, the people plant the Karam branch on the 11th day of the bright moon of Bhado. So they call it Bhado, we call it Bhadro. The same thing. Next. So this is the Mundari songs of Karam, and what is important is that is, while I already have indicated that is, these songs actually have been translated into English, and they have been published in the current, not current, the previous issue of the journal of the university, of our university I mean, and you can have there, 20 songs, 20 Karam songs. Okay. Yeah. So next. First of all, the festive mood, how it is reflected in the Karam songs. You can see The invitation of Karam will arrive soon. I shall dance to the festive tune. Buy me. This is the plea of a sister to her brother, that you have to buy for me a pair of anklets, okay, that will jingle on my feet. And then the sister, out of curiosity, is asking the brother that what flowers made the garland for Karam god? The brother said, the water lilies that grow from the mud. That grow from the mud is a sharp indication of the deep, profound cultural roots, okay, which can never be uprooted. However the mainstream can try to uproot them, it can never be uprooted. Next, another festive song. The Karam dance is going on in the village. Please stop me not. Actually, this is a man telling his wife that, okay, don't get afraid, I'm not going to take a woman. Okay, so but please don't stop me from going there. The madol sounding digda didang damang, okay, makes me restless. So this is next. But then the portal of hardship in these folk songs, they give me the last day's stale rice along with fish grilled in leaves. If I ask again, give me more please, give me a pinch of salt too if I ask you. Nunante panta furoe. So this kind of reference. See, if I ask for a pinch of salt, and again, if I stand in need of it, kindly give it to me. And very interestingly, I have come across another song which again unmistakably alludes to this kind of narrative of hardship. Okay, next please. Yeah, we bid you adieu Karam Raja. এই যে গানটা যে যা যা রে করম রাজা এ 6 মাস পয়লো ভাদর মাসে আনিব ঘুরায় কাল যে রে করম রাজা ঘরে দুয়ারে আজ তরে করম রাজা শাঁক নদীর ধারে. So this is again in the last line, sorry, before that, yeah, Panta Bhat would bid him farewell. So Panta Bhat again is not only an integral part of their culture, but again the unfailing, the inescapable allusion to the hardship in their everyday life. Next. And then Professor Acharya was speaking about the disaster again. Okay, this is not my translation. I have got it from a book edited by, not edited, it is a monograph by Sharat Chandra Roy, a famous author in this domain, S.C. Roy. Dry dust is blowing, the earth overflowing, grey mist doth cover the sky all over, no rains on earth we get. Next. In Ashad and Saun, not a drop of rain, comes the Bhado forth, it rains the earth, oh why no rains as yet? So this is of course alluding to the imminent climate disaster, which is again of course represented in this Karam song. Next. But obviously, in today's presentation, I would like to concentrate on 4 major thematic aspects, which of course to me are very interesting. Number 1, how they reflect Adivasi consciousness. Next, how they, sorry, don't change please. I'll get the previous. The songs highlight cultural anxiety as well as cultural assertion. Okay. Third, how they invoke Birsa Munda as a pillar of their support. And last, of course, the necessity for education for social upliftment. These 4 issues, particularly with reference to the songs, I would like to highlight. Okay, next please. Yeah. So what do we mean by Adivasi consciousness? I have taken a full quote from Ramanika Gupta in the book Indigeneity Cultural Representation, edited by G.N. Devi, K.K. Chakraborty, among others. It is a vital quote. It has given me, of course, a kind of path-breaking kind of, research insight, that we belong to an uncorrupted society whose value system has remained positively in place. So you people, the Diku, who always have been trying to displace us, we have been living united as a cohesive community. Okay, and of course dances, songs, etc. You deprived us of our civilization, dispossessed us, but we continue to play on our flute and drum And then, of course, our flute is our beacon of light. So this is, so we can, of course, always enlighten you. Don't think that we are backward. We have our own culture. And don't try to dismantle our culture. Okay, next. Today we are writing against being displaced by the established people and establishment. We will not let our identity be submerged and our self-respect be crushed. This is the heart of the consciousness. And we will be your equals in life's struggle without giving up our innocence, simplicity, and unity. We have accepted your challenge to compete and march along with your civilization. So mainstream people, you nurture your own ideal civilization, but do you know our culture? Our civilization, if you don't know, don't try to poke your dirty nose into our affairs. So this is at the heart of the Adivasi consciousness. And then, next please, yeah. So now, with reference to certain select songs, which I had the opportunity to translate, I'd be showing in my own humble fashion how this Adivasi consciousness is reflected in these Karam songs. You Munda, why use the language of Diku? So Diku is a word of which I first came across in Mahashata Devi Aranya Rodhikar. I was wondering, what does it mean? Okay, the invader, the outsider, everything. It's a loaded word. Please speak in your own tongue, brother. Our society is at stake. The use of Adivasi language will give us a definite edge in advancing on the society. And speak in your own tongue. Our rich language is in crisis. Why the crisis? Because the mainstream language and mainstream culture is engulfing the Adivasi language, the Adivasi culture, slowly, surreptitiously, and of course with a political move. Next. Yeah, the importance of education, how it highlights. We, the Munda community, we have built our own society. We work to make both ends meet. But being not conscious, we ignore studies. So unfortunately, we don't have much people, okay, very many people to guide us. Okay, that is why we are befooled often. Friends, let's shun jealousy and the feeling of hate. Let's have a mission to educate the people and march ahead. So this is the strong voice, okay, that without education, of course, we can move on. So why should we allow the mainstream people to befool us, cheat us, hoodwink us? We won't allow them. Let's remain united. Next, rediscovery of history and asserting cultural identity. Very interesting. We were at the bank of Indus in past. We have settled in the hilly and wooded Ranchi. We are neither the Aryans nor the... So this binary will not work, remember. Neither the Aryans nor the non-Aryans. We are the Munda. And Sarna is our religion. In the next slide, I would be concentrating on certain points. Next, please. Yeah. The Sarna. Just পরেরটাই, হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে, পরেরটাই. Is it loose? পরের পর করতে থাকুন, you won't have any problem. ওই জন্য বলছিলাম আমাকে দিলে ল্যাপটপটা ভালো হতো. I could. আপনি আপনার আমার তো সেভ করা তো রয়েছে না, অনেকটা আগে সারনা, হ্যাঁ। হোয়াট ইজ দ্য সারনা রিলিজিয়ন? আমার অনেক প্রশ্ন ছিল, সারনাটা কী রে বাবা? And in S.C. Roy's book, I have got some insights that actually the entire circumstances of the religion confined to forest life and forest produce. If you look at the Karam festival, সবটাই কিন্তু সেরকমই. And when Mahashata Devi came to university, okay, she used a very, very crucial word. I still remember her voice, Aranyo Lagno. Apna preme kontho lagno shabdo ব্যবহার করেন. But can you imagine this word? Aranyo Lagno, জনজাতি গোষ্ঠীর মানুষ. So when we speak of the Sarna religion, Aranyo, the indigenous ecocentrism would come to your focus. you can't, of course, bypass it. Somehow or other, the forest produce, the forest culture would come to your focus. And that is why in a river, mountain, and why Singbonga becomes important, the supreme deity, Singbonga, because they believe that he is a chief protector of all these natural resources. And why, I was telling you a couple of minutes back, the white cock is important, because Singbonga can be pleased only with the sacrifice of a white cock. So when my friend shared that rare picture with me, thank God I could spot the white cock in the picture. Next. This is a picture of a tuila. And next picture, perhaps some of you have seen. This is, of course, I'm sorry, I just Googled it. And next is the banam. Yeah, আমি দেখেওছি, banamটা আমি দেখেছি. Next. Yeah. So why I have shown these pictures? I mean, those who have not yet seen it, because they are emblems of their ancient, rare culture. The year has come to an end. Yellow leaves are falling off. We'll never stop hunting in hills and forests. You are Munda. So why be ashamed of dancing? We'll never stop our song and dance in Karam Dong Jadu whenever we get a chance. ওদের অনেকগুলো গান আছে, জাদুর গান, জাদুর দুরাং. জাদুর দুরাং is a kind of song which plays with the ধাঁধা বলি আমরা, ধাঁধা. আরও আছে আঁড়াদি. আঁড়াদি is a marriage song. And obviously আরেকটা আছে জারগা দুরাং, জাগরণের গান. The Punjabis have, দেখেছি দিল্লিতে জাগরণ আছে, জাগরণ. So a kind of, yeah. So Karam Dong Jadu, whenever we get a chance, because this is our culture. Next. We'll build an akra, we'll play on the madul. Poverty and distress may be there, even they know brothers. We won't abandon our culture, ancient and rare. So poverty, of course, is there. That is why should we discontinue our culture? Yeah. Next. Again, education to fight against social evils. This is very important. Listen, brothers and sisters, today, you must answer it all. Why will you stop drinking alcohol? By getting boozy, we lose all work. Society gets pallid and pale. So we are students of literature here. Okay. So this simile, that is, a society gets pallid and pale like liquor day by day. So even when you talk about the aesthetics part, the aesthetic dimension of this kind of folk literature, this is again unforgettable. This very powerful simile. Then, next, exploring the path of social progress. Oh, Munda community. So time and again a call, a Munda community. You have no other path apart from education for your health. Alas, the time is running out. The people get directionless day by day. Let's help the society progress with education proper. We'll certainly get educated and we'll, of course, forge ahead. So no education, no progress. Next, Birsa Munda. Why Birsa Munda is important? Okay. So when, Tilka Majhi and others become important, and why Mundas worship him as God. Next, please. Yeah. Who is playing the flute on the Dombari hill? Where are you, Birsa, our God? Are you there on the hill or in the Chalkat village? Storm rages, fog envelops the sky, lawlessness and violence everywhere. So this is not only the turbulence. Okay, storm was raging a couple of minutes back. But this is again reflecting the turbulence, the turmoil within the society, the forces of disintegration and chaos, which are all prevalent and unsettle the Adivasi imagination. Next. Mother Earth mourns as enemies move forward. Who are the enemies? The Sahibs and, of course, the mainstream, the Diku, quote unquote. You are our God. You are the father of the earth. Dharti Abba, the father of the earth. Please come down by Badhu Nadi. আমার শান্তরা ডিপার্টমেন্টে দুলি দিদি বলেছিলেন, দুলি হেমব্রম, যে আপনি দেখেননি স্যার বাঁধু নাড়ি, আপনি শুধু আমাদের ইউনিভার্সিটি পেয়ে একটু, ইউ উইল জাস্ট কভার 3 কিলোমিটার্স ওনলি, আই ক্যান শো ইউ বাঁধু নাড়ি, খুবই শক্ত একেবারে। সো ইউ প্লিজ কাম ডাউন বাই বাঁধু নাড়ি অ্যামিড আওয়ার সরো অ্যান্ড অ্যাগেনি, বিকজ ইউ আর আওয়ার হিয়ারো, ইউ আর আওয়ার সেভিয়ার। নেক্সট, Dharti Aba, I was telling you, you became strong like a bonga. Why did you disappear? The Sahibs left us long ago and we have forgot them. Next. But forever will live your name. Because not only books, it will be remembered by men. How remembered by men? Because through folk songs, which is our heritage. For example, for years, for centuries, the Karam songs, they will never discontinue. So remembered my main, the father of the earth, you are the provider of shade. Please come back to Allah again. So this is the passionate plea to Birsa Munda. Next. And very interestingly, now Birsa becomes one with Karam God. He was earlier Dharti Aba, father of the earth, but now he becomes one. Synonymous. Who is playing the flute on the cool hill? I am the son of the Karam. So how the dialogue goes on in the Karam song, you see? The answer came, you are Karam God to us, our Marang Guru. So one very, accepted kind of, indigenous God, and again Karam God, Marang Guru, Karam God, everything you are to us. We worship with you Chide as offering. Please come down from heaven by Badhu Nadi amid the suffering mankind. So this plea, time and again, it works as a motif, M-O-T-I-F, in the Karam songs. Next. This is interesting. This is not my translation. This I have got from, that, book chapter in G.N. Devi's book by Ramnika Gupta, where you see this Bhujang Mishram, a Dalit writer, how he is also invoking Birsa Munda like the tribal people. Again, a point of interest, vivid interest. Come, you must come to us, Birsa. Come from wherever you are, Birsa. Come as a skith that cuts the grass. Come as an axe that cuts the wood. Come from where? So just imagination. Come as a skith that cuts the grass. Come as an axe that cuts the wood. In that fashion, come straight to us. Okay. Come as the wind blows through the fields. Birsa, come as people wait. So people vividly wait for you. When will you come? So I'm just drawing to a close of my presentation. Next. Summing up. So these are the major points on which I've tried to shade critical light. That how they're part and parcel of Mundari culture, how they carry the tradition of folk songs. And very interesting, exploring the truth of contemporary life. Okay, the salt is still true in their life. Still, আমি এখন নিজেকে দেয়ারই বলছি, but this is true. Mahashata Devi in that story, Pterodactyl, she tells us that only explosive love can help us unite. Otherwise, the two cultures would run parallel with each other. So that is. These songs truly represent the Adivasi consciousness and try to sensitize the mainstream towards the marginalized Adivasi who has been willfully, unknowingly ignored. This is important. That's the terrible twist. Willfully or even unknowingly, all is othered. These songs speak of an enormous sense of loyalty to indigenous religion, rituals, and voice a cultural assertion of the Adivasis. So next, these are three main sources from which I have drawn my insights, and I read the songs time and again to draw my own kind of conclusions. Next. Thank you very much. Looking for your comments, suggestions, whatever. Bye.
Gratitude, sir, for the illuminating session.
Any comments? thank you, sir. That was a really, like, what we'd say is a very detailed analysis of the poems, and also we got an exposure to this karma festive songs and karam festivals and karam songs, and also there are certain things which made us think, like this cock. You know, cock is something very common among all tribal people. Cock in particular. Even the Balinese cock fight is very, that also has significance in their culture. And also in Odisha, in many tribal communities, they have cock whenever they have some kind of sacred activity going on. So cock is there, so it was very interesting to know that, and you also try to emphasize on that, and maybe we will not get a very concrete image because the history of the people, indigenous people, are so are like, as you could not say that what is exactly the name of the river, Southern River. So that river, we cannot really know, but they believe and they go on with it. So that is how it goes on. And thank you, sir, for that. And I found it really thoughtful also, because you made us think of what to do, like sitting over here, what to do, that some songs are preserved like that of our state. As you talked about language is linked to identity. And because many of the tribes in Odisha, they do not have their scripts. And because of which they are losing. There's so many people, like the population of tribal people speaking Kui is a lot. Kui, maximum number of Adivasis in the western part, Koraput and other places, they speak Kui. But Kui cannot be represented in writing. And so that is how they are losing there. If we are trying to transcribe, we'll transcribe it in Odia language. They don't have a script. So language also stands as a barrier for them. Like if they had their scripts, probably they would have been able to preserve it better. And then, but what is not there is not there. We cannot form scripts now for them. We should preserve their folk tales, their narratives, their whatever their indigenous life is about in the language that we use, whatever language. So it is our duty to look into it. Those who can put a thought into that. Not many science people will understand it. It is we, the literature people, can really feel that within us, especially when we hear two talks like this and two talks of that was just before of Professor Acharya. Now it is open if anybody has any questions or queries or doubts or need clarification. Oh.
So when you were talking about the rain not happening, I'm paraphrasing you here. Like, why isn't the rain happening? Is it talking about any particular sense of famine or any sense of drought?
When you closely read the lyrics of that song, obviously, the poet is envisioning the imminent ecological disaster, famine. Because in Shravan and Bhadra also, no drop of rain. Okay, so obviously, these people depend upon the rain for their cultivation. So where should they go? How to survive on the face of the earth? The sheer anxiety is writ large, okay, in the body of the text. Yeah, it is speaking of a kind of imminent famine. Because they're already very poor, no? Yeah.
So my question is, can we see it as a sort of symbol for other ecological disasters as well?
You see, these days, when we are passing through this kind of Anthropocene or whatever, okay, the Anthropocene is a highly contested term, okay, because the way we understand the Anthropocene is not understood by the white people or the Westerners, fine. But in no way we can avoid this issue of the disaster or the catastrophe or the crisis, in no way. So interesting to note that how even in an ancient Karam song, because we don't know how much old it is, even how the issue of famine is represented. So that is.
So I have another question.
Yeah.
You talked about the Sarna religion.
Yeah.
This
Whatever,
might be a
of course, I don't know much about the Sarna religion. Whatever I've got in the book, yeah. Please put your question first.
Yes, I'm having a bit of struggle understanding what's the
Yeah.
difference between, say, romantic period pantheism or Spinoza's pantheism, and comparatively with
Pantheism,
that.
yeah, a kind of spirit that permeates. We have read Tintin Abbey and other texts, yeah. A spirit permeating all forces of nature. Okay. And here, you see, also, but the slight point of difference is that when you talk about Sarna religion, please take your seat. It speaks of the distinctive indigenous ecocentrism. Okay, so this is, somehow close and again different. Because pantheism, again, does not speak about practicing any religion with rituals. But here in Sarna, we have reference to real ritualistic practices.
Thank you,
Okay,
sir.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for that clarification. And anybody else has any question or need any clarification? Okay. Thank you then, sir.
So first of all, thank you for this very enlightening lecture, and we are really being privileged to listen to you. And the thing is that my question is that when they are invoking Birsa in the song that you have mentioned, that to come straight to them, it's like a whirlwind. And is it only the figure Birsa, or they're actually invoking nature to reclaim what has been rather being taken away?
But the point is, Birsa is not simply a revolutionary figure unto them. He is in the embodiment of Ulgulan. Okay. So, as a Kolho people call it Hul, the Mundas believe in Ulgulan. Okay, so he is a visible icon, embodiment of Ulgulan, revolt. Okay, and obviously when you speak of any Adivasi imagination, somehow nature would come in. Because I use that word to quote from Mashadi Arunno Nagno. So you can't separate that community from nature in no way.
Actually, sir, I just remembered these two stories. One from this Olato Chakra by Taradash Bandyopadhyay, and the story of Pashang Mara, and this very section from Bibhutibhushan's Aranyok, that is the story of Dama Banu, how these women. So this is something like also is there any kind of warning, implicit warning against this quote-unquote civilization? To just that if they try to just too much plunder on this wealth of nature, there is a possibility of this disaster or this nature's reclaiming. There is any implication of eco-horror in those things? I mean,
I've just spotted one song there. Okay, not my translation of course, it is available in A.C. Roy's book. That speaks of the imminent famine. Otherwise, what I have concentrated upon in my presentation is the representation of Adivasi consciousness, why education is important, and how the cultural upliftment is possible, how they can preserve their own ancient, rare culture. That was particularly my thrusting. And when you're speaking of nature, I remember, when I read with my students places of Diaspora, I take the name of Heathcliff. So Emily Bronte very purposefully uses the name Heathcliff. So as if he's a phenomenal force. So it was very much purposeful on the part of the great novelist. He's a phenomenon himself.
Now, I would like to welcome welcome Dr. Soumyadeep Chakraborty, Assistant Professor of Raja Narendra Lal Khan Women's College, West Bengal. Our students will felicitate him with a token of appreciation. I kindly ask all the attendees to stay in this hall for the paper presentation. This session will be chaired by Dr. Soumyadeep Chakraborty. So please come on the stage.
I would like to introduce Dr. Soumyadeep Chakraborty. Dr. Soumyadeep Chakraborty teaches English literature and language at the Department of English, Raja N.L. Khan Women's College. He has done his MPhil from the Department of English and Culture Studies, the University of Bardwan, and PhD from the Department of English, Bankura University. His research papers have been widely published in several national and international journals of repute such as Anudhyan, Landscape, and the Commonwealth Reviews. Chapter in the books entitled Indian Classical Literature, Critical Essays, Springer Encyclopedia, New Populism and Responses of the 21st Century, and Arthur Miller's Death of a Salesman. Critical Companion are among his recent academic ventures. he has co-edited a book on environmental humanities entitled Global Perspective on Eco-Aesthetics and Eco-Ethic, published by Lexington Books. Currently, he is working with Manchester University Press and Lexington Books on 2 volumes. With the Bursary Award and the prestigious Association for Anglophone Post-Colonial Studies Fellowship, he presented his research papers at an international conference at Queen's University, Belfast, Northern Ireland, UK, and the University of Zurich, Switzerland. The areas of interest in his research include performance studies, environmental humanities, and children literature. Thank you. It's over to you.
Okay, fine. Thank you. It's a great opportunity for me to be here in front of my teacher and the esteemed faculty members of this department and this college. With this, I'd like to move straight away to the paper presentations, and I'd like to begin with the first presentation. The first presenter is Choitali Maiti, a familiar face to me because she happened to be there in Raja Anil Khan Women's College. And the topic, the title of her presentation is Ecofeminism and Environmental Sustainability, Tracing the Female in the Select Folktales of the Mishing Tribe of Assam. Over to you.
Thank you, sir. I'm Choitali Maiti. At present, I'm doing my PhD in the supervision of Dr. Shormila Roy at Midnapur City College. I am honored to present my research on the intersection of ecofeminism and environmental sustainability, focusing on the missing tribes of Assam. India's tribal communities hold a deep connection to nature, preserving their rich tradition and knowledge systems through generations. Among them, the Mishing, Assam's second largest tribe, have a unique cultural identity that is deeply intertwined with their environment. Women play a crucial role in this dynamic, often serving as custodians of nature. However, their contributions are frequently overlooked due to the patriarchal structure that exploit both women and nature, and the environment also. My research seeks to bridge this gap by exploring missing folktales through an ecofeminist lens, highlighting the deep-rooted interdependence between women and nature. While there has been significant research on tribal identity, folktales, and environmental concern, the research-specific application of ecofeminism of tribal folklore remains unexplored.
You could take a bit time.
Okay, sir.
You could settle up this glitch and you could begin afresh.
Oh, okay, sir. Okay.
That would be my suggestion.
Sorry for the interruption. Sorry everyone for the interruption. I'm starting with a fresh. I'm honored to present my research on the intersection of ecofeminism and environmental sustainability. Focusing on the missing tribes of Assam, India's tribal communities hold a deep connection to nature, preserving their rich traditions and knowledge systems through generations. Among them, the Mishing, Assam's second largest tribe, have a unique cultural identity that is rooted deeply intertwined with their environment. So, women play a crucial role in this dynamic, often serving as custodians of nature. However, their contributions are frequently overlooked due to the patriarchal structure that exploit both women and the environment. My research seeks to bridge this gap by exploring missing folktales through an ecofeminist lens, highlighting the deep-rooted interdependence between women and nature. So while there has been significant research on tribal identity, folktales, and environmental concern, and the specific application of ecofeminism to tribal folklore remain unexplored. My study aims to address this by exploring the relevance of ecofeminism in contemporary society, analyzing the connection between women and nature in missing folktales, raising awareness about environmental degradation and gender oppression, identifying strategies to combat environmental exploitation rooted in colonial and patriarchal legacies. So I have taken 3 folklore from the missing tribes literature to show the approach of ecofeminism. The first one is the legend of the earth goddess and the forest, where this tale speaks of Bhumi Devi, the earth goddess, who represents the deep spiritual bond between people and nature. Another character is Kaling, a wise elder woman, embodies the role of women as protectors of the land. The villagers, driven by their greeds, exploit the land and leading to environmental degradation. And at this condition, Bhumi Devi's plea to Kaling serve as a call for restoration, emphasizing the need for ecological balance. The second one is the woman and the sacred mountain. A woman's interaction with a sacred mountain signifies the traditional role of women as nature's caretakers. Her disregard for the mountain's sanctity mirrors the historical exploitation of both women and nature. Through remorse and humility, she seeks redemption, reflecting ecofeminism's advocacy for healing and sustainable relationship with the environment. And the third one is the tale of the water spirit. A river spirit represents the sacredness of nature, echoing ecofeminist principle that view nature as living entity. Villagers pollute the river, mirroring real-world environmental degradation. Amba, a wise elder woman, intervenes, restoring balance through wisdom and care, reinforcing women's crucial role in environmental sustainability. As climate change and environmental degradation accelerate, it is imperative to recognize the crucial role of indigenous knowledge and women's leadership in ecological preservation. Through the wisdom embedded in missing folktales, we gain valuable insight into sustainable living and gender equality. My research underscores the need to integrate ecofeminist principles into contemporary environmental discourse to create a more equitable and sustainable future. So I have taken this for my research. And that's all. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. She has raised some very important points and the connection between nature and women. And I think that it would be better to have questions and observations right now. Let not take it further towards the end of the whole session. Let's have questions and interactions right now. I think it would be better since we have time. So if you have any questions or observations, you may please come up. Please raise your hand or come up with your questions, observations, queries, or whatsoever you have. If you don't have, then I have. Okay, so I don't know whether it's a kind of understanding that please don't ask me anything. I'll be available later on. But you know, we keep on doing these very things. I have a question. I have a question which is, you have rightly mentioned that the phrase nature's caretaker. My question is, who is taking care of whom? Is it the fact that nature is taking care of us, or we are taking care of nature? No, who is taking care of whom? It's a very important question. Now, in which way would you like to address?
Sir, for me, nature always trying to take care of us, and in return, we should take care of nature. It's from both sides. If we want to live in harmony with nature, then we should also take care of nature.
That's the spirit. I think it is the spirit of mutuality, by virtue of which you know, the idea of caring something must be you know, preserved at first. We must preserve the idea of caring.
Yes, sir.
That is very important, and I think that's a very good paper. Very some very important points that you have raised. No other. If there is no other you know, question, then I'd like to congratulate you for presenting
Thank you,
your
sir.
paper, and I would like to move to the next presentation, which is
Thank you, sir.
going to be done by Indrajit Ghosh. Indrajit Ghosh, and the title of the presentation is Carrying the Goneness, Reclaiming Identity and Politics of Memory, Jacqueline Woodson's in Red at the Bone.
Good morning, everyone. I am Indrajit Ghosh, and it is an honor to stand before you today to discuss Jacqueline Woodson's Red at the Bone, a novel that intricately weaves the intergenerational narratives connecting a family's intimate struggles with the broader socio-political context of African American history. Through the themes of cultural anxiety, the identity crisis, and the necessity of political activism, Woodson examines how personal and collective histories shape individual lives and community legacies. Intergenerational narratives and systemic racism. A central concern of Red at the Bone is the lasting impact of systemic racism. Woodson presents the Tulsa Race Massacre as not just a historical event, but a persistent wound that continues to shape the socio-economic realities of black families. Spanning 3 generations, the novel examines how the historical oppression influences the contemporary racial and economic inequalities. Woodson explores identity formation with the intersection realms of race, class, and gender. The characters like Iris and Melody challenge societal terms, reflecting the physical and psychological struggles of African Americans. Iris's rejection of traditional motherhood and Melody's coming of age ceremony highlights the tension between autonomy and tradition. Through these characters, Woodson critiques rigid structures that often confine identity, offering a nuanced portrayal of black womanhood and self-determination. Memory, storytelling, and activism. Memory and storytelling serves as essential tools in Red at the Bone, not only preserving history but also acting as radical means of reclaiming identity and resisting oppression. The characters of Sabe, committed to preserving family history, embodies the role of memory as a form of activism. The Woodson highlights how storytelling empowers individuals to challenge societal norms and assert their place in history. Characters in the novel grapple with cultural anxiety as they navigate social expectations and internal conflicts related to their identities. Many struggle with fragmented selves caught between personal desires and legacies of historical trauma. Woodson portrays these tensions, illustrating how identity crises emerge from the complex interplay of race, class, and gender. Red at the Bone positions personal narratives as a form of political activism. By hearing witness to the realities of racism and oppression, Woodson's character reclaim their identities and resist systematic injustices. Their stories serve as powerful reminders of resilience and the ongoing struggle for equality. Enduring the impact of historical oppression, the novel underscores the enduring impact of historical oppression from the Tulsa race massacre to contemporary racial and economic inequalities. Woodson reveals how these injustices persist in subtle yet insidious ways, influencing the lives and opportunities of black individuals in America today. Through the Red at the Bone, Woodson demonstrates how literature serves as a crucial medium for addressing social justice issues. The novel intricately intertwines the personal narratives with collective histories of trauma, urging readers to engage the realities of racism, identity crisis, and political activism in contemporary America. Overall, Red at the Bone is more than a novel. It is a call to remember, resist, and reclaim. Woodson's storytelling illuminates the intersections of history, identity, and activism, compelling us to acknowledge systemic oppression while celebrating the resilience of those who challenge it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Another thought-provoking paper that you have presented. Very important issues have come up through this, in the course of this presentation, like systemic racism. Systemic racism, I would like to know more about this very term, systemic racism, because racism in every possible way is systemic. And also the idea of heteronormativity. These are the very important ideas that have come up during the course of presentation. I'd like to make this session, this presentation open for debate, discussion, and queries. So feel free to come up with your observations, queries, questions, if you have any. I mean, in most of the cases it happens. So this is actually the normativity. This is actually the normativity. We must take it in a positive way. This is the case. Now, what actually, I would not, like to take you to any critical understanding. But what is your take on this very phrase, systemic racism? Because racism in itself is very systemic. It has been very systemic. So, I mean, what is the merit of using the word systemic racism? I mean, it's a kind of, from the linguistic perspective, this is a kind of redundance, if you call it systemic racism, because racism in its very core is a very much systemic.
Sir, I would like to take the example of the Tulsa Race Massacre, for example, which happened in 1st June 1921 in Greenwood, Oklahoma. A black man was accused of assaulting a 17-year-old white girl in an elevator. Although the accusation was not that strong, it was weak, but the girl did not press any charges against the man. But the other white men in the locality took that as an excuse to start racial violence, and it started from firing one shot, and it escalated to a whole-scale massacre. Then it was the white people were also supported by the local law enforcement and the National Guards as well. So, and after that, the aeroplanes were also used to drop bombs. More than 300 black residents were killed. Many were left homeless and injured. And the Greenwood was completely destroyed. So, this shows an example that a small instance of what they called as assault, but it was not actually an assault. It escalated to such a level that it caused the destruction of a whole place or a whole community in general. And before that, Greenwood was a very prosperous place. It was owned, many businesses were owned by the black people, and it was called the Black Wall Street around there. So, and systemic, as in, I think that although many things have changed in these scenarios recently, but down in the core, I still believe that the white people do have the same mentality as of now. So I think that is the answer.
Fine. I mean, you have tried to come to the idea in your own possible ways. Now, heteronormative. Do you have any idea of, the mania and the phobia related to any normative principle? If you think of any normativity, I mean normative principle, which is a kind of discourse in terms of the Foucauldian idea, do you have any idea of any mania or any phobia associated with heteronormativity? Because if you want to explore more the trauma, memory, and resistance, if you align these three within a particular purview, you must have a very good understanding of the mania and the phobia associated with any kind of normative principles. Say for example, the very the basic rudimentary kind of mania that we come across in heteronormativity is a heteromania, and which is definitely comes with homophobia. So in this way, there are clusters, sets of phobias and manias related to any idea of normativity, normative principle. So even Kathy Caruth's ideas and books and essays are very would be very useful. If you could, I mean, if you have any understanding of all these things, you could.
Sir, in terms of phobia, with the context of racism, I would again like to tell this story that I was watching recently. A white man was driving a car and he was over speeding, and so there were two black policemen behind him who were signaling him to stop. So something which is very common in America, and instead of stopping, the man started racing even more, assuming that when he was caught by the policeman and they asked that what was the reason for that behavior, he asked that I could not see the badge, or maybe he did not see it genuinely, or maybe he was lying. But he said that he did not see the badge and just assumed that just because they were black and they were quote unquote scared of those policemen, and he thought that they were assaulting him. So the policeman asked that, do you really think that we would assault you just because we are black? He replied that just look at your faces, you would even run away from yourself if you look at the mirror. So this I think this example shows that trauma and phobia very well.
That is also going with the spirit of storytelling that time and again you have mentioned, because each of your answer is a kind of storytelling, which is the need of the hour in academia, because we have gradually we are forgetting to read stories and tell stories. We are more associated with the theories and the criticism and all these things. It's I mean I have enjoyed, and I'm sure that all of us have enjoyed your paper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
With it, I'd like to move on to the third presentation, which is going to be done by Kaushik Ghosh. And the title of his presentation is Beyond Patriarchy, an urge for utopian self under power dynamics in the left-handed woman.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Kaushik Ghosh, PhD research scholar of Medinapur City College, and I am pursuing my PhD under the observations of Dr. Rajkumar Bera, Assistant Professor of Medinapur City College. Yes, today I am here to present a paper in a seminar called The Politics of Narratives, Contextualizing Indigeneity and Cultural Anxiety in Literature. Yes. And the title of my paper is Beyond the Patriarchy, an Urge for Utopian Self Under the Power Dynamics in Peter Handke's The Left-Handed Women. If I firstly come to the title, of the novel, that is The Left-Handed Women, it seems quite, what should I say, very much strange that left-handed women, because the left-handed women, the term itself, always provides us to a society where means the left-handed doesn't have any space. Look, if we see someone, from our perspective, we will see that, we usually accept the right-handed probably people, and we see that right-handedness is quite normal for all of us. But why the left-handed women? The term, the title itself quite symbolical. The left-handedness, and firstly, I will of course discuss it, from the perspective of power dynamics. And firstly, I will move on to the introductory sections, of course. Yes. So before going to the actual discussions, firstly, I will talk about the actual background of Austria and the Germany at that particular time when Peter Handke has written the novel. Yes. In the Austria and the Germany have the long-standing patriarchal structure with the women historically confined to the domestic roles and excluded from the political and the economic power. Probably there was no space for the women at that particular time, and they are always taken for granted, at that particular time. But after that, when women specifically gained the voting rights in the year 1918 in Germany and Austria in the year 1919. After that, we assume that the picture will be normalized, but nothing was normalized. The gaps, the gender pay gaps and the underrepresentation of the leadership persist in there. And at that particular time, the Peter Handke has written the novel, The Left-Handed Women, in the year 1976. So here we will see the protagonist, the Marine, yes, who unexpectedly separates from her husband and chooses a life of solitude and challenging the traditional gender roles. What happens actually? You know, we are living in a patriarchal society. Always we are demanding that, yes, we will make a world, or we will give the space to everyone. We need equality. We need freedom. We will give male and the female equal space. We talk about it, but nothing is possible. You know, actually in reality, we are always doing the same thing. And that happens in here as well. But we have to see the Marine's attitude towards herself, towards the society. She separates herself from the society where she wanted to create her own world, her utopian world, her desire to establish herself. And then her decision, of course, if we look at the decisions of her, look, if we see her decision, her decision is not quite loud or confrontational, but it is marked with silence, yes, withdrawal and the self-imposed isolations. And if we see the novel delves into the gender power structure and questioning how societal norms shape identity, relationship, and the personal freedom. And here we will get another theme as well, that is a spatial and the emotional autonomy. Because if we look at on the ground of Marine, yes, Marine has the control over her physical and the emotional space, and she wanted to create, of course, her own world. And if we look at the novel from the very beginning, she doesn't talk a lot, she keeps patience throughout the novel, but her silence itself talks, her silence itself called the resistance against the society, you could say. And if I go to the gap of the research, yes, I have gone through so many, articles, and there I have found out all the papers are specifically on the existentialism and the feminism. And, there is no space of power theories, of course, that I have already mentioned in here, the limited applications of power theories. And I have analyzed the text on the ground of, yes, Piri Bourdieu's symbolic power and the gendered habitus, and the Foucauldian discipline and the surveillance. This is the actual gap that I have found out in here. And we will move on, of course. The main aim of my paper is to critically examine the lens of power dynamics and the gendered hegemony, yes, exploring how the protagonist search for autonomy and challenges the patriarchal structure, and whether her withdrawal signifies a genuine step towards the utopian self or a nuisance form of confinement. Because sometimes what happens, women always think a lot that they should take a step, but they do not take it. And here we will see in the left-handed women, Marine has taken a step, where we will see that, yes, she will confess her husband that I don't want to stay with you, I want to leave you, because I want to create my own world. So look, this is the, of course, this is the wish that was existed within her, and this shows that her desire to create her own, utopian society, you could say. And if we come to the textual analysis portion, of course, we will see, firstly, the protagonist, we will see the protagonist, Marine, yes, lives with her husband, Bruno, and their son, Stefan. But what happens one day, Bruno is a sales manager who frequently travels and the leaving Marine to a monotonous suburban life. But after one Bruno's trips, Marine suddenly experiences a sudden realization and asks him to leave. stating, "Go away, Bruno, leave me," you know. And these decisions mark the self-imposed solitude from her side, you could say. And in the novel, we will see the power dynamics. How? Firstly, we will get the power dynamics from the side of Bruno, yes, who is the husband of Marin. And secondly, we will get it from the side of the publisher and the actor, to whom she will meet later. You know, if we see from the side of Bruno, actually Bruno was a patriarchal figure, and he always expecting Marin to be an accommodating wife, and his dismissive attitude towards her agency reflects how power is normalized within marriage. And from that perspective, I will bring the theory of Piribodiu. Yes, symbolic capital, symbolic power. How symbolic power is established? We will go through it, we will dug out it. Look, you know, if we come to the symbolic power sections, of course, yes, symbolic power, there we will see marriage and domesticity as symbolic power. What is the term symbolized power stand for? Piribodiu argues that power is not just as physical but symbolic, functioning through the habitus, a set of ingrained dispositions shaped by the societal structure. And in the left-handed women, Marin's struggle is against an internalized system of norms that dictates how women should behave. And if I say come to the point of symbolic power, what will we see? We will see Marin's husband Bruno embodies the Bourdieu's concept of masculine dominations, where power is exercised not through the force but through taken for granted norms. You know, marriage is you know, is an institution that we could say it's a symbolic power. When we marry someone, we always want to, you know, keep the lady with us, yes, and we show our power. Although we are not forcing her, please stop, but the marriage is used as a symbol for us. You know, it's a symbolic power. And what is habitus? What is habitus? Habitus is a habit, you could say. Habitus is a habit that we gained throughout the years, throughout our life, when we are living in a society. But if we see from the ground of Marin is breaking the habitus. Marin is breaking the habitus. Why Marin is breaking the habitus? Marin is breaking the habitus because she sometimes thought that it was quite difficult for her, you know, to stay in the same way where she was for a long time. She has to speak, yes, although she doesn't speak a lot throughout the novel, but she protested. And then we will move on to, yes, Foucault's power, surveillance on the subject, yes. Here we will see Foucault's theory of the power is quite diffuse through the institutions, discourses, and the everyday practices rather than being concentrated in the one authority. And in the left-handed women, we will see the power over the Marin is not exerted by the force, but through the disciplinary mechanism of society that dictate the normative femininity. Here we will see the concept of internalized surveillance. How? Actually, in the text we will see Marin doesn't need an external oppressor. She is already conditioned by the internalized gaze that makes her feel observed in solitude. Probably in the novel, if we see, throughout the novel, no one has said, Marin, please go away from here. No one has said. But, you know, here the concept of the surveillance has been used by the Foucault. How? Foucault says about the, you know, panopticism. What is panopticism? Actually, panopticism, you know, is a theory said by Foucault where individuals regulate their behavior because they believe that they are being watched even in the absence of the direct person. Although no one is there, of course, no camera is there, but still, you know, the camera is focusing to you. So you are trying to, recorrect your behavior through your self-realizations. That I always say to everyone, please, sometimes you have to feel from your heart. And these self-realizations, this utopian self, this utopian thinking comes to the mind of marine. And that helps her to break those probably habitus and to come out from the society. And lastly, I will come to the concluding sections. Suppose, yes. And in the concluding section, I want to say that yes, power is not always visible. And here we will say that the left-handed women challenges the traditional power structure through the subtle resistance rather than the open rebellion, of course. And the body-use symbolic power shows how social conditioning influences gender roles. And here we will get the resistance and the internalized control that Foucault's theory of discipline suggests marine solitude may be self-imposed surveillance rather than true rebellion, that I have already discussed. And her withdrawal reflects our negotiations within a power rather than a complete escape from it. Yes, she wanted to use her own power. Everyone has their power, and she used it. Because sometimes what happens when we are there in a society, society always try to dominate you, society always try to impose their power upon you, but you have to come out from there. And she breaks it, and she became successful. That's all that I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a wonderful presentation that you have done. I congratulate you for this wonderful presentation. This is open again. This paper and presentation is open for debate, discussion, and exchange of ideas and thoughts, if you have any. Let's wait for their good sense to prevail. If you have any query, any observation, the paper is all about women's liberation, women's coming out of the traditional patriarchal norms. So you could well respond to this paper. There are several critical undercurrents in this paper that I have found, and which is good for a very, I mean, long research, a long drawn research, but which is, is I think a bit heavy on the part of the stipulated time that you have for a paper presentation, because you have brought in Bourdieu's idea.
Yes.
Foucault himself is enough to engulf everything.
Definitely.
So if Foucault is there, there is, I think, no need of bringing anybody, because Foucault's idea, Foucauldian idea of power, and you have referred to panopticism. The very idea, Foucault, it was not Foucault's idea. It was not Foucault's idea. Jeremy Bentham's idea, right? The panopticon, the idea was Jeremy Bentham's idea, the 18th century idea, 18th century idea of prison. 18th century idea of prison. You said that it is Foucault's idea. It is not Foucault's idea, indeed. The other very important thing is that I would like to refer to one thing, that it is not possible to be the keeper or the watcher of a surveillance system. It is not possible, and that is the reason why we put certain persons who would be taking care of the CCTV cameras that are there in the campus, because it is not possible for only one person to take care of the surveillance. And perhaps that is for this very reason that men put women as the keeper of patriarchy, because women are also the agents of patriarchy. So how, in which way you respond to this very idea that women are also the keepers of patriarchy, because men, they have very, politically, they have understood that it is not possible for them to take care of patriarchy on their own. So that is the reason why they, very interestingly, they have put women as the agents of patriarchy, by virtue of which men surveillance over women, by virtue of women's gaze. So in which way you have to respond to it?
Actually, sir, if I focus on this ground, actually, if any marriage takes place, you know, where the husbands are and the wife are mingled together, you know, sometimes the amount of love they show for each other, we can't imagine that, or the women is not in a position to understand the actual reality that the man is putting the power upon her. And of course, but actually, sir, the sometimes it's a male dominated society. The men always puts their power. Sometimes the women also respond, we could say, but women also doesn't know that they put their power, but their if we compare the power together, the women's power are not you know, we could say that the not that amount of power that is used by the men. But sometimes if we go or if we analyze these texts from this ground, Marine understands the reality. Actually, sometimes the self-realization is very much needed. There is no surveillance, of course. There is no surveillance. That doesn't mean that you will not understand you, or that doesn't mean that you will not realize yourself. You have to realize. You have to realize, you know, by your previous experiences, by your memory, you know, means throughout the life when we are growing, we have witnessed several experiences, of course, and Marine also experienced several incidents in her lifetime, and that's why Marine understood the reality that she should speak out, or she should come out from this space, and she should think in an utopian way where she could create her own space, you could say. So these realizations came to her, and she realized herself, that I could say.
I'd like to add something to that. That once there was a time when people would, I mean, the feminist writers would love to be called as feminists. Nowadays, a feminist writer takes the word as an affront. I had a kind of experience of interacting with Shashi Deshpande, and one of the fellow presenters, I mean, she called Shashi Deshpande as feminist, and she just, you know, I mean, she couldn't endure the very term that don't call me feminist, I'm a humanist. So that is, I mean, with this very spirit you ended your paper, yes, which is, you know, beyond, you know, the feminism, beyond feminism. And what is beyond feminism? There must be humanism and rational, I mean, relationality, yes, yes, relationality, where we must focus. Two very important things, because things are getting a bit, I mean, a bit more serious. So let's make things a bit funny. One thing is very important, that left-handed woman, in a world which is being dominated by right-handed men, it's very good to have a paper on left-handed woman. Because the you know, right-wing politics and the left-wing politics, these are having very important you know, issue of discussion and debate in this world. Because you would well understand the rise of the right-wing politics. And in this scenario, political scenario, presenting a paper on left-handed woman is very praiseworthy. Things are getting changed. A man is presenting a paper on women's liberation, which is very good. And I, being a man who, you know, I teach in a college which is women's college, is something very different. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. With this, I'd like to call the next presenter, who is Meghna Basu. Meghna Basu is going to be the next presenter, and she is going to present her paper, which is entitled as Reframing the Self, Gogol's Journey in the Namesake.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Meghna Basu, and I'm doing my PhD under the supervision of Dr. Shormila Roy. I am very glad to be here presenting a paper for the two-day international seminar on politics of narratives, contextualizing indigeneity and cultural anxiety in literature. Today, I'm going to present a paper titled Reframing the Self, Gogol's Journey in the Namesake. A name is often the first marker of identity, a link to heritage, culture, and belonging. Yet, in newer lands, names may be changed, shortened, or mispronounced, reflecting both adaptation and struggle. Identity, too, is a fluid concept that is formed by past experiences and reshaped by newer realities. The existence of immigrants is a testament to resilience, hope, and the search for opportunity, but it is also marked by challenges of acceptance and belonging. In every new beginning, an immigrant negotiates the balance between where they have come from and where they are going to, carving out a space in an unfamiliar world while holding on to the essence of who they truly are. In Multiculturalism and the Politics of Recognition, Charles Taylor argued that identity is shaped through recognition by society. He emphasized that misrecognition can lead to oppression and psychological harm, making the recognition of cultural identities an essential part for justice. Due recognition is not just a courtesy we owe people, it is a vital human need. Now, I'm going to focus on the research gap. The present studies tend to emphasize external influences like family expectations, cultural norms, and societal pressures, but they do not sufficiently analyze how Gogol actively reconstructs his self-concept over time, adapting to changing personal and emotional landscapes. Additionally, there is also limited exploration of the psychological and existential dimensions of Gogol's identity transformation, particularly in how he negotiates memory, loss, and self-perception. So my study seeks to bridge this gap by examining Gogol's self-reframing as a fluid and multidimensional process rather than a binary struggle between two cultures. This research focuses on his evolving sense of self across different life stages to provide newer insights into identity formation in diasporic narratives. I'm going to talk about the aim of my paper. It is to analyze the evolution of Gogol Ganguly's identity in the Namesake by Jhumpa Lahiri, focusing on how his personal, cultural, and familial experiences contribute to his self-redefinition. By examining the psychological and social aspects of his journey, the study seeks to explore to broader themes of identity, belonging, and transformation within the immigrant experience. The objectives are as follows: to explore how Gogol's name serves as a symbolic representation of his struggle with identity, to analyze the impact of family, tradition, and cultural heritage on Gogol's self-perception, to examine the role of relationships, education, and career in shaping his evolving sense of self, and to investigate how Gogol's journey reflects the larger themes of displacement, assimilation, and cultural hybridity. Now, I will be analyzing the text using quotes by the omniscient narrator of the novel. Before going forward, I would like to mention that our character, Gogol, is named after the Russian author Nikolai Gogol. Our character Gogol's father, Ashok Ganguly, refers to Nikolai Gogol as a major reason as to why I'm sorry, I just forgot to change the slide. Our character, Gogol's father, Ashok Ganguly, refers to Nikolai Gogol as the reason as to why he's still alive. Ashok Ganguly once went through a traumatic train accident and he almost gives up on his life if not for a page from Nikolai Gogol's The Overcoat. He catches the attention of the rescuers by holding on to a page from Nikolai Gogol's The Overcoat. And that is how our character gets named as Gogol. In the namesake, Jhumpa Lahiri explores Gogol Ganguly's struggles with his name, his conflicted identity, and his journey towards self-acceptance. First, I'm going to talk about Gogol's childhood, where he faces discomfort with his name and cultural identity. As a child, he doesn't quite understand the significance of his name, but senses that it makes him different from his American peers. He feels out of place and begins to associate his name with embarrassment. He hates having to explain, and he hates having to tell people that it does not mean anything in Indian. He hates having to tell them that he was named after a Russian writer. His name makes him stand out, highlighting the tension between personal identity and societal expectations. Lahiri uses childhood moments such as classroom interactions, family gatherings, to show Gogol's early alienation from his Bengali heritage. During his teenage years, Gogol actively rejects his name and heritage. As he grows older, Gogol begins to actively reject his Bengali identity, and he sees his name as a symbol of his difference. He wants a name that aligns with American culture, believing that it will help him assimilate with his new culture. At times, his name is an entity shapeless and weightless that manages nevertheless to distress him physically, like the scratchy tag of a shirt he has been forced permanently to wear. Lahiri illustrates Gogol's internalized shame through his avoidance of Bengali traditions, his irritation with his parents' accents, and his discomfort in social settings where his name is questioned. During his college years, Gogol attempts to reinvent himself as Nikhil. Believing that changing his name will change his identity, Gogol legally adopts the name Nikhil when he enters college. He sees it as a chance to escape the burden of his heritage and start afresh. He wonders how his parents had done it and had had the courage to remake themselves in a language contrary to not their own, but he has done it alone. By choosing a name that sounds more conventional, Gogol attempts to control his narrative and gain agency over his identity. Now I'm going to talk about the relationships and experimenting with the different aspects of identity. Gogol's romantic relationships with Maxine and Moshumi reflect his ongoing identity struggles. With Maxine, he fully embraces an upper-class white American lifestyle, distancing himself from his family. This is what the omniscient narrator talks on Maxine. He's conscious of the fact that his immersion in Maxine's family is a betrayal of his own. And with Moshumi, a fellow Bengali American, he tries to reconnect with his heritage, but their marriage ultimately fails. And this is the quote on Moshumi. He had assumed she would be different, that she would understand. Now I'm going to talk about the final leg of Gogol's journey in trying to get accepted to his identity. It is about the death of his father, when he finally tries to reconnect with his heritage. The death of his father marks a turning point, forcing Gogol to reconsider his roots. He begins to appreciate his father's sacrifices and cultural traditions. Without people in the world to call him Gogol, no matter how long he lives, Gogol Ganguly will once and for all vanish from the lips of loved ones, from the minds of those who knew him, disappear as if he had never been. Gogol realizes that his name carries meanings beyond societal labels. It is tied to love, memory, and belonging. His final acceptance of his name and identity. At the end of the novel, Gogol embraces his name and its significance, symbolizing his acceptance of his complex identity. For the first time in his life, the name he had so detested sounds right to his ears. Gogol realizes that his name is a vital part of his identity, not something to escape from. Lahiri uses the final scene in which Gogol reads the overcoat to show his full circle journey, his acceptance of both his given name and the multiple layers of his identity. I would like to conclude my paper. Through Gogol's struggles, Lahiri presents identity as a fluid and evolving concept shaped by personal history, cultural expectations, and external pressures. Using identity politics, we see how his rejection, reinvention, and eventual acceptance of his name mirrors the broader experience of second-generation immigrants navigating multiple cultural worlds. Ultimately, Gogol learns that embracing his name means embracing all aspects of himself, his heritage, his family, and his individuality. And these are my works cited. And that's all. Thank you so much, everyone, for your kindness and patience.
Thank you. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. The paper has rightly pointed out some very important issues like diaspora sensibility, cultural hybridity. Also, in a way, comes in the idea of home, which is inescapable in the discourse of diaspora. Any question, any observation regarding this wonderful presentation, if you have any? Or is it that the lunchtime is gradually proceeding, so all these academic papers are falling on empty stomach? So I don't know. Rightly mentioned by sir. So any question, any observation? I have one, customarily almost. Oh, fine, fine. Fine, please come up. Please come up. Just introduce yourself, who you are, and just, put forth your question.
I'm a student of UG 3rd Sem
Fine.
of Midnapur City College. My question is that if a person's name really present his identity?
A person's name is not the only thing that presents his identity. It is also what he thinks, what he talks, and whatever he goes through in his life. But a name is definitely what carries forward his identity, and a name is, it's not the be-all and end-all of his life, but certainly a name is not something to be hated. Here in my paper, Gogol Ganguly has always had an issue with his name because it didn't sound Americanized enough, and it also had no meaning whatsoever in comparison to his American peers. So he completely focused on his name, and he let go of everything else that is important that constituted him as a person. So here the point is, it's not just about the name, but it's rather about how one looks forward in his life regarding everything that he does. However, a name should also be a deciding factor in how one carries himself forward. So it doesn't matter if he used his name Gogol or he used his name as Nikhil. What matters is he needs to accept himself internally in order to get accepted by the world. As somewhere in the novel itself, Gogol's father, Ashok Ganguly, mentions it to Gogol that we have all come under from Gogol's undercoat, from Gogol's overcoat. Here he talks about Nikolai Gogol's the overcoat story. And what he means here is that we all need to accept who we are. We all need to stay close to our roots, and we need to belong to what we are and only then the outside world is going to accept us. It doesn't matter from where you come from or what your name is, but what matters is what you believe in. If you are not able to believe in yourself, and if you're not able to have acceptance towards your thoughts, then the entire world is never going to accept you. So I hope I was clear with this.
Fine. You're rightly, answered in the right spirit. And thank you so much for coming up with this question, putting forth this question, which is very important and very crucial question that you have asked. What's in a name is a very remarkable quote by a person. Who is the person? Who is the person? William Shakespeare, and it is Romeo and Juliet. But he contradicted himself towards the very last phase of his literary career when he wrote down a play like The Tempest, where the protagonist's name is Prospero. He was really prosperous. So he contradicted himself, that everything is there in a name. So that is very interesting. And Shakespeare is, that treasure trove from where we could, draw anything or everything. Now, I would like to ask you something, which is, if you talk of diaspora, there comes the issue of, as you have also mentioned rightly, that cultural hybridity. Cultural hybridity. Cultural hybridity is something very positive. But there is also another term which is called liminality, which is also there in the diaspora studies. Liminality is not treated in that positive sense. So in which way you think that in diaspora study, the diaspora study discourse ultimately tethers between liminality and cultural hybridity, the positive and the negative. It keeps on tethering between the positive pole and the negative pole. So what's your take on this very thing?
In case of cultural hybridity, I think it depends on the individuals who belong to the diaspora, as in how they embrace the concept of cultural hybridity or even the liminality associated to it. Some time back, as you mentioned, what's in a name, and how people associate themselves, or the question that she asked, the way some people associate themselves with their name, and then there are some people who don't really associate themselves with their names, but rather with the way they represent themselves or the way they move forward with their actions. So I think the implications of cultural hybridity or the liminality associated with it also depends from person to person, and it's not just an issue of diaspora itself. I would not like to make it an issue or a problem related to diaspora, and rather I would like to individualize this, as in how every person goes through it. The mentality of every person related to it. So that's how I'd like to.
Fine, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
That's a wonderful presentation. And what is very important is that she has responded to the questions positively, and with all her intent, she has answered these questions. That is very important. Thank you so much.
Everyone.
With these words, I would like to move on to the next presenter, who is Nobodip Mondol. And the title of his presentation is The Politics of Identity and Power, a postmodern rereading of David Grieg's Dunsinen.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Navadip Mondal and currently I'm pursuing PhD under the supervision of Dr. Rajkumar Vera. Today I am presenting my paper, The Politics of Identity and Power, a postmodern The Politics of Identity, a Postmodern Rereading of David Gregg's Dansinan. Okay. Now, let's start with the introduction. Dansinan is a with the postmodern technique are employed to interrogate historical narratives and their contemporary implications. Gregg's play functions as a critical remaining of Shakespeare's Macbeth, challenging the established historical and interpretations of questioning the very nature of truth and identity. To frame our discussion, I will be drawing the postmodernist theorists, particularly the works of Lyotard and Michel Foucault. Lyotard's concept of metanarrative is particularly useful in analyzing how Dansinan subverts the traditional Shakespearean narrative. Meanwhile, Foucault's discourse on power and knowledge helps to understand us the mechanism of control that has Gregg exposes in play. The postmodern perspective allows us to see Dansinan as not a simple historical retelling, but as a layered critique of imperialism, identity, and truth. One of the central concerns in Dansinan is the unstable nature of identity. The play presents Lady Macbeth, now named Grudge, as a symbol of Scottish resistance against English occupation. Unlike Shakespeare's Macbeth, where Lady Macbeth is often seen as a English as a manipulative figure, Gregg represents her as a strong leader whose identity is in conflict with the imposed English rule. By portraying Grudge as both a rightful queen and subversive figure, Gregg challenges the idea of fixed national identity. The character of Seward, the English commander, serves as a contrast to Grudge. This belief in a singular stable form of government clashes the idea that identity is fluid and consistent identities in Scotland. Through these characters, Gregg raises critical questions about the nature of national identity and colonial structures. Now, power dynamics, power in Dansinan is not absolute, it is the shifting force shaped by perception and discourse. The English force led by Seward believe they are bringing stability to Scotland. The power struggle between Grudge, Seward, and the various factions in Scotland mirrors contemporary global conflicts where foreign invitations often leads to prolonged instability rather than a resolution. Gregg uses dialogue to expose the contradiction within Seward's mission. His interactions with Scottish rebels and his own soldiers reveal the fragility of his authority. The constant negotiation of power reflects Foucault's idea of power that is not held but exercised through relationships and discourse. Gregg employs several postmodern techniques to destabilize historical truth and emphasizes subjectivity. That is intertextuality. By rewriting Macbeth, Gregg forces the audience to question their assumptions about history and literature. And again, he uses meta-narrative, and multiple perspective. The play presents conflicting accounts of events challenging the idea of a single historical truth. These techniques align with Lyotard's critique of meta-narrative, suggesting that history itself is a disputed space rather than an objective record of events. Identity in conflict. The characters in Dansinan are caught between their personal identities and the political roles imposed upon them. Grouch must navigate the exceptions of being both queen and the rebel. Sweat struggle with his identity as a leader in a land he does not understand. Even the Scottish lords are torn between loyalty to their land and the pragmatic need to survive under the English rule. This fragmentation of identity reflects the postmodern idea that identity is constructed and fluid. Gregg uses this tension to critique not only historical imperialism but also contemporary struggles with national and cultural identity. Dansinan has been widely discussed for its political and historical implications. Critics have noted its relevance to modern conflicts, particularly in the Middle East and post-colonial setting. This play's refusal to offer clear moral judgment has been both praised and criticized. Some view it is as a powerful deconstruction of history, while others argue that its ambiguity makes it difficult to extract the definitive message. To conclude, Dansinan serves as a powerful example of how theatre can interrogate history, identity, and power. Through postmodern techniques, Gregg dismantles traditional narratives, forcing us to confront the complexities of national identity and history. By challenging Shakespeare's Macbeth, Dansinan reminds us that history is not fixed, it is a space of ongoing debate and reinterpretations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This is again a thought-provoking paper, and the issues like subversion of traditional theatrical modes, forms, by virtue of subverting different roles that you have rightly pointed out. And if any question, any observation, if you are with any question or any observation, please feel free to come up. Any question, any observation? Because Macbeth is a very widely read and very popular a text, and it's any kind of adaptation must provoke your thought, isn't it? One who doesn't have any idea of literature can also speak a bit, I think, of Macbeth or Shakespeare. So, I mean, without knowing anything, they used to talk on Macbeth and Shakespeare. That's a different issue. But if you don't have any thing to share more, I have a query. Have you read any article, or have you come across another very important Indian adaptation, which is called Varnam Vana by B.V. Karant? Since this Gregg's adaptation is being entitled as Dansinan, in a very interesting way, B.V. Karant's text is also entitled as Varnam Vara, which is the Burnham Wood, the Burnham Wood. So I think both of them, Gregg and B.V. Karant, they have used it as a motif in the text. So, a very important texts are also there, focusing on this very theatre adaptation by B.V. Karant. Suresh Kumar Avasthi was also there, deeply involved in this adaptation. And there are very important books, one by Poonam Trivedi, one by Aparna Bhargav Dharwalkar, These are very seminal books on post-independence Indian English theatre. There is also a very important essay by Erin Mee, which is on theatre of the roots. I think this would help you to understand that these are the things that had already been adapted in India as well. In certain cases, way before this very adaptation. So you could well think of those Indian, post-independence Indian theatrical adaptations as well of Macbeth, of incorporating Shakespearean motifs and textualities within the gamut of Indian theatre. Thank you. That's all. That's all. Thank you. With it, I'd like to move on to the last presentation for this session, and I'd like to call Orpita Maiti. Orpita Maiti is not here. Oh, Orpita Maiti is not here. So, which means this is the last presentation of this session. It's a very enriching, engaging session, thought-provoking session. What encourages me rather is that this very institute is running the research wings in a very fruitful way, and the researchers, they are coming with very interesting avenues for further research. That's good. Thank you. Thank you from this platform.
Gratitude, sir, for the illuminating sessions, and thank you all the presenters. Now, I would like to call Dr. Rajkumar Bera, Assistant Professor of Department of English, Midnapur City College, and the convener of this international seminar to come on the stage and conclude the session.
Very good afternoon, everyone. At last, we have reached the end of our today rigorous international seminar, because the students as well as the scholars and all the teachers of the department, they have served well. And first of all, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the resource persons present here and those who are not present now. And we have experienced, that in these two international seminars, particularly 2 days, rigorous, informative, insightful, discursive discourses on the particular title, Politics of Narrative, Contextualizing Indigeneity and Cultural Anxiety in Literature. And, I'd like to share one thing regarding the title, actually, because when we are talking about, means departmental teacher, we are talking about some international seminar, then we are trying to find a particular, just a title on which we can focus on. And we are talking about just a kind of a draft we made ready ultimately. Then I talked to Professor Madhusmita Poti, my guide, actually PhD guide, and we talked over phone for half an hour regarding the title, so that the title can be catchy as well as can contain maximum open focus of the literature. Then again, I talked to my other colleagues also, and ultimately we are agreed with the title that should be fixed and set for the seminar. Okay. So we are very much gratitude to all the resource persons, first of all, and as we conclude the particular discussion, so ultimately one thing I will tell that the storytelling, the past portion, per section, politics of narrative, that is very, very much vital for everyone, because after that, whatever the section, indigeneity, cultural anxiety, whatever we'll find, because we are trying to implement the theories or different kind of theoretical discourses inside of particular politics of narratives. So regarding the narratives, and I know that one thing I would like to add, that no narrative is fixed, no narrative is neutral. Politics of narrative, that particular section all the time puts a certain kind of paradox in the particular space of discourse of or any kind of interpretation, because narratives in itself is political by nature, and through narrative the politics can be conveyed. So these two are particular perceptions, because you know that if we go for Lacan, you know that actually we will find that language is unconscious. So whenever we read language, unless or until we have just depth over the internal meaning of the language, we can understand the actual context and any kind of theoretical and contextual configuration of the text. So that's why it depends on the individual experience and knowledge how we'll approach to the text. The approach is important, and for the sake of the approaches, you know that we must have to be indebted to the praxis of theoretical knowledges. So that's why one thing that no actually particular of a narrative is neutral. Every narrative, whether spoken, written, or any kind of a silence, of course silence itself is a narrative within, carries power. Because when you are talking about the narrative, the theoretical structure of power must be there. Because you know that without power, we can never actually set any kind of narrative. Actually, narrative deeply associated with the power structure. It shapes identities, controls histories, negotiates anxieties with cultures. In narrative, language is a powerful tool that we have already understood that about. Now I'm coming to a little bit about indigeneity. Indigeneity, as we have explored, it's not just about belonging to a land or to a people. It is about the right to define oneself against the history of erasure and appropriation. Here I have to come to the concept of erasure of Jacques Derrida. Because you know that if you go for the concept of erasure, you know, Jacques Derrida quite brilliantly has argued well that erasure all the time invokes a kind of a silent interplay between absence and presence. All the time the fighting is going on, and erasure, it gives a kind of a struggle between the very written as well as the very particular spoken words, means logocentrism and the written words. And ultimately he has developed, you know, that on the basis of logocentrism, phallogocentrism, the masculinity development, a kind of a very actually patriarchal world. The struggle is there. Actually, he puts the particular word eraser, that there is no any particular fixed meaning in the world. Nothing is absolute in the world. Every meaning of the text is very, very much contextual. So politics of narrative is apt here, because how far we'll move towards the end of any kind of textual interpretation, we must have to be guided by our intuition about our experience of the theoretical apparatus that we have we have the knowledge about. And the literature of indigenous communities is more than folklore. It's not about only folklore. It is a site of resistance. Yes, of course, resistance is very, very important, because as Foucault argues that without power there is no meaning of the resistance. Power and resistance both are simultaneously working, and both are coercing each other at the same time. So without one another, it is impossible to be executed in the world, in the societal system, in the particular paradigms of the normation, and in the paradigms of any kind of principle the society has said, that is Foucault called as the flow of normalization. Okay. So the literature of indigenous community is not about the folklore. It is a site of resistance, a claim to voice and visibility. These narratives often exist within a framework of cultural anxiety, where modernity, colonial legacies, global homogenization challenge their survival. Okay, so now the most important fact is that what is the role of literature nowadays in such kind of politics of narrative? Literature all the time provides a particular open space for us to just engage ourselves in depth from the different kind of perspective to actually create a new kind of avenue of the new kind of insight and thinking. Literature can reinforce dominant ideologies. Yes, of course. Actually, there is one kind of nowadays ideology. The term is very much political, very much actually serpentine in nature, because it doesn't have any particular course of settlement. So when we are talking about ideologies, of course, Althusser is there and Adorno is there. So many left-wing Marxists are there, but we can never leave Slavoj Žižek, who totally extended himself from Althusser, because his main concentration is that ideology is, he has actually, that divided the concept of ideology into three formats. One is ideology in itself, first. And second one is ideology for itself, but he believes in ideology in itself and for itself. Okay, so that's why I'm not going deep in discussion of interpreting such kind of ideological representation, because you'll read different kind of theoretical perspective and you'll come to know about it. So I'm just making a brief outline about the politics of narrative, how it is now going to be executed by ourselves in time of our actually interpretation of the text. So, but it can subvert them. Ideologies can never be fixed. And allowing for reclaiming the silent stories. Yes, there is silent stories immediately, in narratives all the time we'll find a certain kind of stories is there. And some stories are silent, some stories are very much spoken about. So when we are talking about silent stories, immediately we can easily remind the very concept of subjugated knowledge by Michel Foucault. That is very important, because according to Foucault, subjugated knowledge is the ultimate result of all the struggle and protest against the structure of power. So we have to concentrate, particularly in time of reading any kind of indigenous literature, what is the subjugated knowledge and what is its usage particularly. Then we can come informed that what is the struggle and how far the struggle is getting to be actually fructified in reality or not. These kinds of, that analysis we can take over the help of such kind of subjugated knowledge. And this concept also Theodore Adorno has described as negative knowledge, and this is the politics of narrative. Of course, we'll find this is the negative knowledge that helps us to feel the very sense of anxiety, okay, within, whenever we'll approach any kind of text or any kind of cultural text itself. So in the world, that identities are gradually contested, increasingly contested. Responsibility to the readers, writers, as well as the scholar is very much clear, and because it is very much clear, we have to understand one thing, that we are now living in a world that is, we can say better, a rhizomic world. If you cut one root, immediately you will be entrapped by the another kind of root. You can never escape properly from any kind of power structure or any kind of ideological structure or any kind of narratives that we have and we are experiencing from the text written by the other. So we, all the time, the two kinds of narratives are constantly coercing each other. Okay, so this is the thing of what I'm trying to concentrate on. And we must not only engage with these actually narratives, but also question the structure that dedicate with voices are heard. Literature is powerful, of course we know that, achieve the human struggle and resilience constantly, and if we are to respect its true potential, we must ensure that it reflects not just dominant histories, but full spectrum of human experience. And here, of course, the Foucauldian concept of history is very important, particularly Foucauldian concept of general history, not total history, because Foucault has divided history into two segments. One is total history, that is represented accordingly, that is represented according to the year, according to the actually subsequent events and incidents. That seems to be a kind of a planned. Foucault is not talking about such kind of history. Foucault is talking about the general history, where Foucault uses the word rupture, discontinuity, must have to put in time of interpreting the particular historical text, because histories are same, events are same, but the most important politics lies there, how we are arranging. Okay, I mean, audible? Okay. Oh yeah, how we are arranging, that is most important thing actually Foucault is concentrating on, that is general history. Okay, so ultimately, we have remembered that every story told and which is not still untold shapes the world ultimately where we live. The politics of narrative is not just a literary concern, it is a reflection of the struggle and hopes of real people. And in engaging with such critical intuitions, critical perceptions, we do not just study the literature, we take part in the ongoing fight for a justice, identity, and cultural survival. I think that is my insight that I have also experienced. Of course, other resource persons, they have talked about a lot about the different kind of sections, perceptions, you have experienced a lot. So this is my insight all over the title. And I think we are well, actually, that kind of a will actually imbued with such kind of informative lectures of the resource persons. And here I'm just putting my lecture drop here. Ultimately, now I would request Abhishek to conclude the session. Please come. Thank you.
Now, I would like to call Mr. Abhishek Chakraborty, Assistant Professor of Midnapur City College and also the joint convener of this international seminar. Sir, please come on the stage.
So Dr. Bhera has already successfully concluded the seminar. So it will be just a formal vote of thanks as we have reached the end of our 2-day international seminar. And I hope that everybody has enjoyed. At the same time, they have been enriched by all our resource persons, how they interacted with us, how they interacted with you, the students, as well as the research scholars. And I thank them, we thank them from the deep of our heart. At the same time, I like to convey my regards to Dr. Pradeep Ghosh, Honorable Director, Midnapur City College, that who has encouraged us continuously to conduct this international seminar. At the same time, I like to thank Dr. Sudipta Chakraborty, Principal, Midnapur City College, and Dr. Kuntal Ghosh, Vice Principal of Midnapur City College, that who was all the time suggesting various that innovative ideas that we could have used to make this seminar a successful one. And particularly, I would like to thank Mr. Abhishek Das, Assistant Register, and his entire administrative division that who have guided us throughout these 2 days to make this seminar successful. Now, personally, I would like to thank Mr. Suman Mallik and Mr. Suman Das. These two people, they were two massive pillars behind all the technicalities that has supported these 2 days and all the technical sessions. I just like to request everybody to give a big round of applause for Mr. Suman Mallik and Mr. Suman Das. At the same time, I would like to thank the members of the organizing committee that who are still there in the canteen building, maintaining the food and the beverages, how the students, they can eat properly and everything. So again, a big round of applause for them. And last but not the least, I am thanking the advisory committee and particularly Dr. Uttam Kumar Jena, Dr. Somadip Chakraborty, Dr. Oshijit Dotto, and Dr. Anindya Sundar Pole, that again for their suggestions. So that is, I'm concluding the vote of thanks. I wish everybody a bright day ahead, and for our resource persons, a safe journey. Thank you.